Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll be showing you how I made this t-shirt with an Ankara print pocket and sleeve trim. I actually made one for my husband for Father's Day, and then I made a second one to show you guys how I made it. So if you're interested in how I achieved this look, please stay tuned. Alright guys, let's get started. I have 3 yards of this cotton knit jersey, and I actually only ended up using about 1.5 yards to make this shirt. I have some African print fabric that I'll be using for the front pocket and for the trimming on the sleeves. This is completely optional. You can skip this part or use a different fabric, or you can make an accent pocket piece or trimming, or do whatever you want. It's your shirt. This is the print my husband chose for the shirt, and I'll set that aside for now. To make the pattern, I'll be using one of my husband's t-shirt, specifically one that is in good shape and fits well. I take the shirt and fold it in half to the front. Then I trace around, starting from the back neckline, down the front fold, then back around and along the armhole seam, then ending across the shoulders. I trace around again, this time starting from the front neckline. Lastly, I trace around the sleeve. I didn't have any craft paper on hand, so I just traced onto some extra scrap fabric that I had. As you can see, I've added my 1/2 inch seam allowance. To create the extended curve at the bottom of the shirt, I add 4 inches to the end of the front end fold. Then I line my curved ruler at the end of the 4-inch point and the back end point and trace the curve. Then I add my 1/2 inch seam allowance. For the front shirt pattern, I added 2 inches at the bottom of the front fold and traced the curve the same as I did with the curved ruler for the back pattern, and add my 1/2 inch seam allowance as well. And here is the sleeve pattern. I went ahead and cut 1 piece each of the front and back patterns and 2 of the sleeves. At this point, I grab my African or Ankara print fabric to prepare the trim on the sleeves and the front pocket piece. Remember, this is optional, so you can skip over these next few steps if you choose. Starting with the sleeve, I open and lay it flat on the table, right side up. For the width, I measure 3 inches up from the bottom. From that point, I measure across the sleeve for the length. I add 1 inch to each side to make sure the fabric overlaps and covers both ends, which for me turned out to be 18 inches. The width of my fabric is 6 inches, which I'll cut in half later, and that'll give me 3-inch width for both trim pieces. I measure 18 inches in length and cut across at that point. Now I fold the fabric in half and cut across. When that's done, I set them aside. For the pocket, I keep the width at 6 inches. I fold it in half and measure 8 inches down on the fold and cut across. On the other side, I measure 3 inches up from the bottom. I cut on a diagonal from the bottom of the fold up to the 3-inch point. Then I end up with this. I flip the pocket piece over backside up and give it a quick press. Then I fold a 1/2 inch on each side and press in place. When that's done, I flip over to the front and press. Then I tuck the bottom corner 1 inch under and press and set that aside. Next, I grab the sleeve trims and press them backside up. Then on one side only, I fold a 1/2 inch in and press in place. To attach the trim, I grab and lay the sleeve right side up. Then I line the raw edge of the trim and the raw edge of the sleeve at the bottom, right side up, making sure it overlaps on both sides of the sleeve and pin in place. After pinning that in place, I sew across the top of the trim with a zigzag stitch. Here's what the sleeve looks like after it's done. I cut the excess trim on both sides and set them aside. I grab the pocket and sew a hem across the top with a zigzag stitch. Here's a closer look when that's complete. Now I grab the front of the shirt and lay it front side up. I line the pocket piece on the upper right hand side of the shirt to my liking and pin in place. Starting from the right side, I sew along the edge to the top left side with a zigzag stitch. Here's a closer look when that's complete. Next, I flip the front of the shirt over to the back and fold a 1/2 inch in and press along the bottom curve of the shirt. Since the shirt is curved at the bottom, it's easier to hem the shirt this way. I sew across with a zigzag stitch. After hemming the front and back of the shirts, I line them together, front facing in, and line the shoulders together. I sew them together with a zigzag stitch. When that's done, I open the armholes front side up and line the center point of the sleeve with the shoulder seam and pin together. I continue pinning on both sides. Then I sew across with a zigzag stitch. When both sleeves are attached, I line the shirt together wrong side out and pin the underarm seams together. Starting from the top sleeve, I sew down to the bottom with a zigzag stitch. I turn the shirt right side out when that's complete. I grab my measuring tape and measure around the neckline. I take that measurement and subtract by 2 for the length of the collar band. For me, that was 17 inches at 2.5 inches wide. I fold the collar band in half right side in and sew the raw ends together with a zigzag stitch. I cut the excess fabric off and fold the seams in half onto each other. Then I continue folding around and press in place. On the folded end of the collar band, I measure in 1 inch and pin on one side. I take and line those 2 pins together and pin at the center point on both sides of the fold. The long side will be for the front neckline and the shorter for the back. I take the shirt and fold it in half to the front and pin at the center point at the front and back neckline. I make sure to line the long side of the collar band to the front and pull the neckline through the collar band. Lining the raw ends together, I start off by pinning the seam of the collar band with one of the shoulder seams, then continue pinning the other 3 points of the collar band with the front and back center point of the neckline and the other shoulder seam. When that's all pinned together, I stretch to fit each section as I sew around with a zigzag stitch. I give the collar a quick press after it's attached, and here's a closer look when that's complete. I also went ahead and hemmed the sleeves by folding in a 1/2 inch and sewing around with a zigzag stitch. And here's a look at the shirt once it's complete. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when there's a new upload. See you guys in the next one. Bye!